Thanksgiving is as American as pumpkin pie. What? The saying is as American as apple pie. Get your pie straight, book.
Argo Font Book Review. Argo Font Book Review.
This book was written by Nola Thacker. Claudia starts by recapping who all her various friends are. Mallory says her entire family dressed up like Groucho Marx for Halloween this year, even though in the last mystery book, they all dressed up like Ghostbusters. Continuity! At the BSC meeting, Claudia recaps who all her friends are. Again. She recaps who Dawn is, even though Dawn's not in the club anymore, and we could get along just fine without hearing about her. Claudia also recaps Abby's twin sister Anna, and I'm starting to suspect that they gave Abby a twin sister just so they could squeeze more recap out of her. For Short Takes class, Claudia and her friends have to help third graders put on a play. They decide to do a play about the first Thanksgiving. They're going to put special emphasis on how much things have changed since then. Like, we say cranberries, while the pilgrims said craneberries. And they ate oysters for Thanksgiving. Yuck! Also, everyone back then was a sexist, racist, bigoted, close-minded monster. And if you celebrate Thanksgiving, you bring their sin upon yourself, you despicable waste of a human being! Well, that sounds like a terrific way to put people in the holiday spirit. At the next BSC meeting, Jessie complains there were no black people at the first Thanksgiving. Abby complains there were no Jewish people. Claudia complains there were no Asian people. I'm surprised the book didn't keep going with this. Stacy could complain there were no New Yorkers. Christy could complain there were no baseball coaches. Marianne could complain that nobody brought cat food. And everyone would blame Mallory because she's the one with British ancestry, so she would sit in the corner and cry. In the subplot, everyone's holiday plans get cancelled. Christy decides she'll host Thanksgiving for all of their families. That's 36 people with lots of kids to watch. And I'm sorry, a big event with lots of kids to watch was an interesting premise in Book 6. But it's been done so often, I can't care about it anymore. Besides, they've used this plot twice in the past 5 books. I don't want to see it done for the 3rd time in 6 books. They have auditions for the play, which is a laughable idea, because these are 3rd graders. I've seen multiple 3rd grade plays, and I can assure you they are not that serious. The kids talk like this the entire time, and oftentimes you can't understand what they're saying. None of the kids actually memorize their lines, they just read from the script the whole time. The play rehearsals are more realistic. The kids goof off instead of paying attention, and they mess up a lot. That 100% sounds like 3rd graders. Things take a dramatic turn as the parents are furious to hear some of the lines in the play.
Women finally won the right to vote in 1921, said Betsy, but they still don't have equal rights. That's a law that hasn't been passed yet. This is outrageous, a red-haired woman said.
I know! Congress passed the right to vote in 1919, and it was ratified in 1920. Why can't they get their dates right? Seriously, when your book dedicates an entire chapter to doing historical research, it looks really terrible when you miss a date by 2 years. The breaking point comes when the play says Native Americans today think Thanksgiving should be a day of mourning, not a celebration. A parent yells that this play is un-American. How dare they say the Pilgrims weren't heroes? Abby yells at him for believing lies and propaganda, and presumably he yells back at her for being a terrible replacement for Dawn. One woman takes offense at a tree. I'm not joking, Claudia paints a tree and the scenery. The woman points at her from across the room, and she keeps a close eye on the scenery from here on out. What is wrong with this person? It's a tree! We never find out what her problem is. It's just a weird chapter. Of course, none of the angry parents are Babysitters Club clients. Imagine how much more interesting the book would have been if Dr. Johansson had taken issue with some parts of the play. The principal steps in. He says they either have to change the play or cancel it outright. Claudia and the others are outraged. That's censorship! What happened to free speech, man? I thought this was America! Abby suggests she would have changed the play if the parents had asked her nicely, which is a total lie, Miss I Yell at Strangers. They decide to compromise by writing censored in huge letters all over the playbills and posters. That's not a compromise. That's not even kind of a compromise. They also wear big protest buttons at the play to get attention. The BSC members are acting like those jerks on the internet who purposely go out of their way to offend everyone and then play the victim card whenever there's backlash. The censored play goes reasonably well. They performed the uncensored version at the middle school, and it's a madhouse as protesters and counter-protesters yell the entire time. I can't help but remember the book where the middle school parents started a literal riot over the fact that Dawn didn't want to wear yellow. What is wrong with these parents? They just start riots all the time. It's crazy. Claudia has a brief moment of self-awareness as she realizes, the play is actually kind of terrible without cute third graders delivering all the lines. She also thinks discussing history is pretty complicated because there are multiple sides to every story. An interesting moral for a rather one-sided book. After all that protesting against Thanksgiving, the Babysitters Club members celebrate with a huge Thanksgiving dinner. What are they doing? Were they not paying attention to their own protest? Dinner starts at 2, which is not dinner, that's a late lunch. Dawn shows up unexpectedly. She doesn't do anything, but hey, it's nice to have Dawn appear in a book that clearly should have been narrated by her. The end. Post-book follow-up. I'm not joking, this book would have been much better with Dawn or Abby as the narrator, because they would have been far more involved in the women's rights crusade. Claudia, strangely enough, doesn't seem to care much about the play. Her narration is generic, describing what happens without commentary. Besides for the strange tree chapter, there's nothing about the book that makes it Claudia-specific. Abby was annoying, as she complained non-stop for the entire book. She mostly complains about women's rights, except on page 67, where she warns Betsy to stop complaining about women's rights. That was a weird continuity error. Abby mentions that she's Jewish at every available opportunity, even when it's not relevant to the conversation at hand. It's weird, because this is the first time the series has specified she's Jewish. If she's so militant about her religion, you'd think it would have come up earlier. The book assumes that the readers are already familiar with the traditional first Thanksgiving play. I'm not. I've never seen that play before. I don't know who Massasoit or Giles Hopkins are. I don't know these characters. I asked my friends about this. Apparently schools putting on Thanksgiving plays is a somewhat common thing on the East Coast. It's not as common anymore, maybe because of this book. Overall, I did not like this book. It's a heavy-handed screed against Thanksgiving, followed by a heavy-handed screed against censorship. Does it raise some legitimate issues? Yeah, and I wish the book had gone into those issues instead of lecturing readers for 100 pages. It's just like the book with Dawn and the Environment. Even though I basically agree with everything that the book is saying, it's so mean-spirited and heavy-handed, I don't like it at all. Ironically, it's a lot like the propaganda that the book claims to hate. I give Babysitters Club number 91, Claudia and the First Thanksgiving, a 1 out of 10. She claims it's the best Thanksgiving ever on the final page, and that conclusion is not warranted by anything which came before it. You can't complain about Thanksgiving for 100 pages and then say, oh, it's so wonderful.